Well, hello everyone, and welcome to another edition of Dynamics Fortnite Fridays. And it's just me today, so it's going to be a solo edition, all Power Platform and CE related news. And because of that, it's not really very fun to tell a dad joke just to yourself, so I'm just going to jump right into the content. So, share my screen out, and let's go. First thing up, Dataverse business skills. So these are really cool ways to start storing the skills that all of your agents, whether they're a coding agent or a Copilot Studio agent or something else that you build, need in order to function correctly and to understand how you relate to data and what your policies are and all that kind of stuff. So you get to build them and define them in Dataverse as business skills, and it's where you store all of your instructions. You can even store documents and other things in that so that you can describe and give it access to all the things it needs in order to do that skill. And then to use it, you just have to have the Dataverse MCP server installed on your agent that's going to consume it, whether that's GitHub Copilot or Cloud Code or Copilot Studio or whatever else, and it now has access to grab all that stuff through the Dataverse MCP server that you have stored as skills and use them without having to redefine them every time. So great reusable construct to allow you to store your business skills in a centralized place that everyone could pull them from. So love it. Analytics are super important in Copilot Studio, and we have now made available to makers a new role when you're sharing an agent. You can actually just share the ability to view the analytics of an agent. So allowing someone to get at all of the things that you might want them to be able to see about analytics, whether it's related to billing and savings, or whether it's related to the conversations or the effectiveness or the outcomes or all those things. They can be available to someone without actually having full access to edit the agent or anything like that. That this is a new thing that you can let people use it. You can let people look at the analytics, and then of course you can allow people to co-own and create the agents with you. So big plus and a step forward in what you can now do right in the Maker Studio with others. Copilot Studio Kit has had a nice update made to the kit. And one of the new features I am super excited about is a Copilot Studio Kit debugger to help debug an agent and understand what's going on with that agent that may have caused it to give a wrong answer or take a wrong turn or take too long. So it looks at the execution path and the performance timeline and some debugging information, conversation previews, helps analyze root causes. It's really cool. The one thing that you have to do is not only install the kit, but you have to make sure that the agent that you would like to debug has been connected to Azure Application Insights, and you have the service principal included in Copilot Studio Kit that has access to those application insights. And that as you're having the conversations, it was after App Insights had been turned on, because this debugger is querying all of the good stuff that's getting logged on your behalf in App Insights with a bunch of AI around it in order to help you fine tune and hone in on exactly what's going on. So super cool stuff. Pay attention to that as a really nice job aid to help make sure that you have many things at your disposal to keep those agents healthy and running quick. If you're interested in just sort of what all has come out in Dataverse over the last little bit, that this is a really nice review article of a lot of the different things, and it kind of breaks it down into what are business users getting out of it and what's new there, and then what are the makers in Copilot Studio able to leverage out of Dataverse. These business skills that I just talked about are one of those great things. And then what are the coders who are actually using Claude Code or GitHub Copilot in order to build things able to do with the capabilities that have been launched around Dataverse. So it's a pretty nicely put together way to look at all the new improvements that have come into Dataverse with especially these MCP servers that talk to it. And I'm going to be talking about more of those here in just a minute. So take advantage. Dataverse is getting lots of cool features pulled into it. If you've wanted to run evaluations on more than just like a test run to look at what a specific run did and a certain prompt and was its output from that prompt what you expected, but would rather look at an entire conversation as something to evaluate to make sure that the entire ongoing thing actually passed whatever test you want to put against it. That in Copilot Studio's native evaluations, there is now a way to say, when I'm going to do this evaluation, what I want to do is evaluate the conversation, not just a response. So nice way to up the game on things that you can evaluate right in the product. I found this blog post and I just thought it was a really nice, succinct way to describe to newer makers how to think about what you're using in Copilot Studio. And the biggest thing I love is just this buckets to start. That there are buckets of things that when you configure them, you are mostly trying to describe and control the behavior of your agent. And these are topics and instructions and prompts and skills. That's how the agent's going to think, how it's going to respond to what people do when they're interacting with it. And then there's other things that take action, and topics can take action. So I kind of think she could have thrown topics in this as well, but tools, agent flows, MCP servers all do stuff. So just keeping those buckets kind of in mind is super helpful, I think. So, and then she goes into each one and describes it a lot more. I just thought it was helpful, so included it in my roundup. Dataverse got a summary. Copilot Studio is getting a summary as well. So in the April timeframe, we did some nice things like Analytics Viewer role. So talked about that already. Agent 365 is now generally available for helping your admin team keep track of the Copilot Studio agents along with your Agent Builder agents and out of the box M365 things that come with M365 Copilot and things in Foundry and things that are in complete custom code and things in other clouds that Agent 365 is meant to help those admins keep track of all of that stuff, but Copilot Studio definitely plugs right into that architecture. We have now built a standalone Copilot credit estimator that will kind of help you choose the things that you would like it to estimate and put in some assumptions, and it will help spit out what it thinks you're going to be consuming over whatever time period you have prompted for Copilot credits over a period of time to know how many packs to buy or whether to get the giant thing, or maybe with what you estimated that it doesn't really make sense to buy packs and you just turn on pay as you go and you're good. So nice estimation tool. Workflows. If you have not checked out the new workflow designer that's part of Copilot Studio, and by the way, when you go into flows, one way you can click into those flows is to continue to do the legacy agent flows that are essentially like Power Automate Cloud Flows. But if you choose workflows, you get this whole new canvas that can do all kinds of really new things like jumping right into M365 Copilot and not only running it through this orchestration engine, but Agent Builder agents you can orchestrate through that. So you can do things that you were never able to do through the API infrastructure that this brings into the drag and drop interface. And it's just easier to work with, and you can do lots of things within it. So I would highly recommend you go pay attention to the new workflows capability that has shown up in Copilot Studio. For most people, there are a few of you that haven't taken some of those preview experiences, and it is preview at the moment. So if you've blocked preview stuff, you might not see that quite yet, but it's coming soon and pay attention to it. For centralized governance, that we now not only have the workflows stuff for the makers, but I'll talk about it in just a little bit. We've got some new skills to try to help the governing team that has to administer your Power Platform do all kinds of other stuff. And there's a workflows agent that you can get all the things that are built in that workflows area with the workflows agent into a single Power Platform environment so that you can set your DLP policies and things like that on that special Power Platform environment to make sure that you're keeping people safe with stuff that's going on with the workflows agent. So another nice benefit. Apps and agents, agents and apps. We got all that inception going on. Copilot Studio can surface all kinds of interesting things inside of Copilot Chat now. So leverage that and make sure you're using the Power Apps MCP server in order to expose it inside of these agents and things. So lots of pretty cool stuff. There are a few integrations that are now showing up directly in the agent store that are new with Adobe Express and Box and Figma, Monday, Wix, and there's more coming. Evaluation Insights, we already talked a little bit about that, and that's now possible through an API layer, not just right in the product. So also callable through that layer is awesome. If you're looking at your analytics and you would like to define custom metrics for what you would like to show up on that, that's another nice new thing. The Work IQ API, super important, and it's all those MCP servers that really let you get into that and click the box on that front page that's the overview of your agent to turn on that Work IQ API. So it's different than when you go into the settings and you see Work IQ at the bottom that you could turn on basically for the SharePoint connector. But this is what turns on the MCP servers that give you a much quicker, better, more programmatic access to the Work IQ API that will give you the better results that you're hoping for. And to be able to even use agent to agent in WorkIQ, which is a new capability brought by that WorkIQ API. And again, all this stuff's in public preview, but start playing around with it because it's super important. And a new model, so all kinds of good stuff in Copilot Studio. Love me some Roundup blog posts. All right, another new thing that just hit the wire, I believe yesterday, is computer using agents in Copilot Studio. So those have been around in preview for months, and we just went generally available with those. So start using them in production workloads. Pretty awesome stuff. They're now available across all Power Platform geographies. It's no longer US based. You can get in and secure your credentials, and it obviously goes in through the rest of the Power Platform governance things in PPAC, human in the loop checkpoints. We got lots of good stuff with computer using agents. Take advantage. If you are a hardcore PowerFX user and making Canvas apps and maybe even a few other things in a few other places, that all of this user-defined type stuff is pretty technical, pretty powerful, very much something that the power users love taking advantage of, and they're now generally available to use at scale. So take advantage of user-defined functions, user-defined types, all that stuff. This one I'm probably more excited about than just about anything else that's coming out in this period for the last fortnight, that the Power Apps MCP server natively just had introduced closed loop learning. So if you are using the Power Apps MCP server, one of the things that it will be doing is surfacing things in the agent feed in your model-driven apps where if it doesn't know how to do something or it gets something wrong, that people that are monitoring that agent feed and feeding in new information or correcting information that the agent feed is surfacing that the MCP server is allowing to get wrong, that stuff's going to get persisted, and the agent will be learning as it's running. And it doesn't just learn by what people give it for feedback. It actually learns over time across all kinds of different stuff. So this is all about the closed loop learning where you're kind of telling it, wait a minute, when you see this abbreviation, spell it out because that's how we do things, or other things like that. The other thing that is really cool is that it is also looking at this genetic Pareto optimization that is looking at the prompts that were built into the agent, and it will automatically fine-tune its own prompts to work better based on the feedback it's getting from people, with thumbs up, thumbs down, and all kinds of other stuff that's going on in that agent feed. which will affect the universal memory of that agent in general that has also been produced. So this is no longer just an individual user's memory. This is an agent level memory that is automatically getting updated to just make the agent smarter over time as it runs and as people give it feedback and as more data comes into the system, it'll be auto picking that stuff all up and making itself better closed loop. So love the fact that we are bringing self-learning into the Copilot Studio realm with this Power Apps MCP server. So love seeing that. I'm expecting that to move into other MCP servers and other experiences in Copilot Studio over the next few months, but excited that it's where it is anyway. At least it's coming. Another cool aspect of Dataverse for people that are using code first experiences like Claude Code and GitHub Copilot, in the Dataverse skills that is now out there, they have been enhanced with admin skills to let you basically, in your prompt to GitHub Copilot or Claude Code, just say, I'd like you to go rifle through all of the environments in my tenant and make sure that the GSA access is flipped on. Or I'd like you to go rifle through my environments and look for all of them that have Power Pages and make sure that we have the WAF and firewall enabled for all of my Power Pages sites that are in production. You can just give it little instructions like that and it will go figure out how to administer Power Platform in the PPAC and do all of these kinds of things. So super excited about this for the admin teams as well. Evaluations, I already talked about what's in product in Copilot Studio. There is another new tool that if you're willing to wire this up to an Azure OpenAI instance to do some work, that there's now an independent tool that can look at any agent, no matter what type of agent it is, and evaluate it, giving it some prompts or giving it some things that it needs to do and evaluating its responses and giving feedback, putting a nice dashboard together with statistics and stuff. So if you're interested, that you can evaluate Agent Builder agents now, you can evaluate what M365 Copilot itself is doing, all your Copilot Studio, and even custom agents if you want to. It's in a GitHub repo. You just have to be willing to wire it up to the Azure OpenAI endpoint so that it has an LLM that it calls in order to get stuff done. So super neat new enhancement. So wanted to make people aware of it. Agent governance, been a huge topic. I'm not even going to click into this one. There's just been updates to the white paper that a lot of people have used for kind of getting that framework of how to govern agents at scale. And as new features keep coming out, we keep updating the white paper. And so a new version dropped. I'm calling it out. And this last one on the Power Platform is Power Platform got its own summary of what's there for May. So we talked already about the Power FX and the user types and the user-defined types and user-defined functions and all those things being generally available now. Talked a little bit about being able to bring custom AI into your agent experiences. So that's also now there for the Power Apps MCP server when you're using it. The next thing, though, I had not heard of until this came out, that generative pages were always something you basically had to navigate to, either through a direct URL to the page or through a sitemap item. But there's now input support so that clicking on something can just take you to the right generative page under the covers so that it will allow a lot quicker, easier navigation between the pages that doesn't require heading all the way back to the sitemap in order to get to it. So a lot of nice enhancements there to generative pages. Also, there's a new skill that the PowerCat team put together for the Canvas authoring MCP server so that you can just use your favorite coding agent, GitHub Copilot is mine, to be able to just give it instructions to say, I'm pointing you at an info path form and I want you to whip me up some Power Platform coolness to build a Canvas Power App that does the same thing functionally that info path form used to do. So love the fact that they've finally made this available 7 or 8 years after people were really kind of worried about making that happen and people have done a lot of manual work. doing it, and I love all that work, but we've got a lot of info paths still sitting out there. So this skill with the new coding agents is a quick way to at least get a first draft pulled together. Got some new controls for the Canvas apps. A new data grid control even that's Fluent UI for your Canvas apps. And a whole bunch of stuff that's been updated in the learn.microsoft.com realm. I don't know if anybody who's going to look through all of those, but it's pretty cool they're there. I actually just use the Learn MCP server now for just about everything, and it goes and finds the latest everything out there. So for the Power Platform side of the world, that was my set of updates. The Dynamics 365 customer engagement capabilities also had a few things come out that I thought were worthwhile. Case enrichment. So if you have configured the case management agent, it will go out and try to figure out how to auto-populate some case fields based on incoming emails or things that are going on in the platform. And if you've configured that and you're saying, I think I got it right, how do I know? There's a new simulation you can run that's going to like throw some sample records at it so that you can watch it work and see what its outputs are before having to do that for real or fake it out, and just let that simulation bring stuff in, take a look at what it did and figure out if you need to fine tune anything before you actually make it live. So love that. In contact center scenarios where voice is one of your channels, recording the call is something that has to have user consent in some places. And if you have to do that, or if you just want to make sure that people are consenting, but you'd like to offload that task from the customer service representative who's talking to the person every time before they can hit record, that we now have the ability for our voice agents that are built in Copilot Studio to have a consent prompt that understands based on the end user's response. If consent's granted, it'll automatically start the call recording. If consent is refused, the call will proceed without recording, all based on what that kind of IVR agent or Copilot Studio voice agent is doing to offer for the kind of caller to grant their consent or not before it gets handed off. So nice update there. In Dynamics, we've obviously put all sorts of agents out there for lots of different scenarios. And this is just highlighting some of the ones in the customer service contact center space with quality case and customer intent agents. One of the things that a lot of people are struggling with is how can I get some sort of idea of how much consumption of Copilot credits are these agents going to do? Because those three broad buckets actually get split up over like 20 or more actual Copilot Studio agents under the covers that do a lot of the work. Well, we now have a demand forecasting estimator for the Dynamics kind of first party big picture agents. And I'm sure this will work for sales as well as customer service, but knowing that there is this estimator and how to do some sort of a demand forecast and get some sort of an idea of how many credits we think we're going to consume, nice step forward. Last one is just kind of an announcement more than anything, but if you have started using Cowork in Copilot to have a little bit longer running interactions to go take action on stuff from the Copilot interface, one of the things that has recently come into that experience is that we have plugged in Dynamics 365 sales, customer service, and ERP apps to Cowork so that you can ask it to look across all of your Dynamics information, not just your M365 assets of all the stuff that you're familiar with there, to make this an even more useful capability. And not only that, we did Fabric integration as well to look at the reporting side of things. So Cowork now has access to two of the three major IQs and your Dataverse stuff along with your ERP stuff that isn't necessarily Dataverse. So lots of good work done in the Cowork realm. So that's sort of my updates. I was pretty much able to fill up that whole half an hour with just the CE and Power Platform announcements. As always, in the last 2 weeks, Microsoft has brought lots of updated solutions out there for Power Platform environments, and most of it's our kind of first-party stuff that is just constantly having our dev teams push out updates to. If there are any of these things that you are interested in, just pay attention to them. PowerCat Tools and Copilot Studio Kit are actually not Microsoft products. They are open source kits that were put together by our CAT teams, but they both had updates just recently, and Copilot Studio Kit was updated twice. So if you haven't gone out and gotten them, pay attention and go get some of those so that you can take advantage of the newness. And with that, I'm going to say we have a wrap for this edition of DFF. I appreciate you joining. I'll post the stuff to our DFF website later today for all the others to consume, and hope you all have a great fortnight. We'll see you in a couple of weeks.